everyone, it's Jack from Cultaholic.com. Bit of a desolate environment at the moment in Cultaholic. A lot of people have already broken up for the festive period, and fair play to them, but that doesn't mean the wrestling news stops, does it? So for one video for now, we are back to the single person format, but we will be going back shortly to the nice little wee chats that we have these days. But you know, I'm just jumping in. I'm just on my grind, on my hustle. You know what I'm saying? This intro has gone on for too long. Let's take a look at those lovely little headlines. First of all, WWE are apparently discussing a plan for a lucha libre series. Next up, a Raw Legends Night edition has been announced for the very, very near future. And finally, 3 title matches are set for that big episode of SmackDown on Christmas Day. So first of all, WWE are apparently planning some sort of lucha libre series, and of course this comes in the midst of all of this news about NXT reportedly expanding or having plans to expand into India, maybe other parts of Asia as well. So maybe it goes hand in hand with that kind of news. This comes courtesy of Wrestling Inc., who say that they have learned the company has been discussing a Mexican lucha libre series, which would be an NXT Mexico of sorts, maybe suggesting that it's not going to officially be under the NXT banner. I'm not quite certain. They go on to say that the show would reportedly air in the US, and the WWE has spoken with a few people about running the project, but it's very early on in the planning stages. One of the names apparently considered as a consultant is Chavo Guerrero, which is, you know, understandable. He's very experienced, he knows both the US and Mexican scenes. It's Chavo Guerrero. It's also worth noting that Chavo was an agent for Lucha Underground and was very, very involved with that promotion. So maybe he could bring some of his production know-how, well, you'd expect he would, to this Lucha Libre series that WWE are planning. Could it have a bit of a Lucha Underground feel, I wonder? I'd guess no, if I had to put money on it, because, you know, Lucha Underground, was way off the wall and everything. Whereas if WWE are doing it, it might have that more NXT style polish to it. One source, according to Wrestling Inc., compared the project to the WCW Telemundo Festival de Lucha pilot that was taped in Waco, Texas on January 27th, 1999, but that never aired. But if you want to check that out, that is available in the Hidden Gems section of the WWE Network. Now on to other stories, and WWE have announced a very special edition of Monday Night Raw, set of course for January 4th, a big day in wrestling because it's obviously day one of Wrestle Kingdom from New Japan, but on that same day at a different time because time zones, etc. Raw will be planning to hold Legends Night. This news obviously comes 1 week after we learned about Raw hitting record low ratings, so maybe it's a bit of a last minute plan to kind of boost those ratings. We've seen Legends themed shows crop up occasionally, haven't we, in the past? Raw's 25th anniversary, for example, and so on. On WWE.com, it is confirmed that Hulk Hogan and Ric Flair will be at the show. 2 massive names there, 2 big heavy hitters. An advert also played during Raw, which featured the rest of the names. I will list them off in alphabetical order right now. The names are of a variety of stature in terms of legend status, I think it's fair to say. But anyway, I'll just run through them now. So Alicia Fox, Beth Phoenix, Big Show, The Boogeyman, Booker T, Candice Michelle, Carlito, Hillbilly Jim, Hulk Hogan as mentioned, IRS, Ivory, Jacqueline, Jeff Jarrett, Jimmy Hart, Kurt Angle, Mark Henry, Melina, Michael P.S. Hayes, Mickie James, interesting that she is now classified as a legend, I reckon, Ric Flair, of course, as already mentioned too, Sergeant Slaughter, Tatanka, and Tori Wilson. So quite a stacked show there. I'm not quite certain how they're going to cram everybody in and give everybody some camera time, but they tried it at Raw 25, didn't they? And it sort of worked. We had some strange combinations and some strange segments, and it might be likely that we'll see that again. One also has to question the wisdom of WWE doing this during a pandemic, you know, flying in presumably people from all over the place to congregate in one area. I think it's probably going to come in for some criticism in terms of its health and safety primarily. But we'll have to wait and see how it goes down, both in terms of PR and of course in terms of the quality of the show itself. Next up, let's talk about SmackDown Christmas Day edition. That's right, because Christmas Day is on a Friday, we've got an episode of SmackDown. Not a live one, mercifully, for the WWE roster. They're going to be allowed to pre-tape it and then put it out on Christmas Day. I think that's for the best, really. But yes, already 2 title matches were announced, and WWE have added a 3rd title match to the mix. So let's take a look at all 3 right now. So we already knew about 2 title matches. One was Roman Reigns versus Kevin Owens in a steel cage match for the Universal title. That is a rematch, of course, from TLC, where Roman Reigns beat Kevin Owens to retain the belt. And also, we already knew about Sami Zayn versus Big E for the IC title. And I would suspect that Big E might well win that title for a big Christmas Day title change. They've done it in the past, I believe. And finally, the third title match added to the show concerns the new Women's Tag Team Champions, Asuka and her mystery partner, Charlotte Flair, who returned, of course, at TLC after about 6 months worth of absence. Now, their challenges on that show have not been revealed. It could well be a rematch against the former champions Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler, for example. It could potentially be Dana Brooke and Mandy Rose, and I can't really think of any other immediate candidates right off the top of my head. But anyway, it'll be interesting to see not only the outcome of those 3 title matches, and I reckon that Big E might be in with a chance to win that IC belt, but also it'll be very interesting to see what other Christmas-based shenanigans the WWE roster get up to. What are they like, those little scamperoonies? Next up, let's go to Matt Jackson of the Young Bucks, who was talking to Fightful recently and shed some light on the process behind, the time that WWE offered them a deal. So back in 2018, when the Bucks were planning to leave Ring of Honor and New Japan Pro Wrestling and essentially set up AEW, they were, of course, as it has since come to light, offered a deal by WWE, direct from Triple H himself, as it turns out. I believe at the time it was reported that Omega and Hangman Page were also offered deals, and ultimately they turned them down, a very brave decision, and of course set up AEW. Well, talking to Fightful, Matt Jackson had this to say about Triple H. He said he was great, a charming dude, he said all the right things. I don't know how many times I told him no, we must have declined the offer. I don't want to exaggerate, but at least 4 to 5 times. And by the end of every conversation, he would have another call scheduled with me in 2 weeks, and I would go, how did he do that? He goes on to explain, saying the conversation would start with me saying, we're so sorry, we're going to pass on this, thank you so much for the opportunity. And an hour later, I'm talking about our next phone call in 2 weeks' time. He is a magician. He's the game as well, Matt. He thinks more. He's cerebral. And no wonder he has the job he has, because he's a charming guy and will charm your socks off. I have nothing but positive things to say about him. He's very intelligent. The things he said, the ideas he had, at times I told Nick, maybe this is something we should at least consider. There was a time when me, Nick and Kenny, the 3 of us, were all like, I think we're actually going to end up in WWE. And of course, we now all know how that panned out. They turned down the offer, they set up AEW, and we are where we are in the current wrestling landscape. But it's very intriguing to think what would have happened if the Elite had taken that offer and had instead jumped to WWE. Would there still be an AEW with Cody trying to find other people to scramble together a promotion? Would it have been as successful? And how would WWE have utilized the Bucks, Omega, and Hangman Page if he went as well? I seem to remember rumors at the time that Hangman may have been guaranteed some kind of NXT title reign or something like that. Ultimately, of course, they did turn down Triple H, but it shows, I think, the desperation, maybe not necessarily to get those specific wrestlers on board, but to maybe stop whatever else they were about to set up, which of course turned out to be All Elite Wrestling. And finally, Magnum TA, wrestling legend, of course, NWA legend, has been talking recently to Hannibal TV about Tessa Blanchard. Now, Magnum is, of course, Tessa's stepfather, and he was talking a little bit about her departure from Impact, which, if you remember, came under very strange circumstances. So essentially, if you remember, Tessa was accused of bullying by various different women in the wrestling world, allegations of racism as well, and under this sort of cloud of controversy, she then won the Impact World Championship, the men's championship, not the Knockouts division. But then, before her title reign could really get off the ground, suddenly she was gone from the company while still champion, and it seemed like a lot had gone on behind the scenes that we didn't know about. Well, Magnum TA has shed a bit of light on this. Now, Magnum said this: I knew from the moment they came up with the idea of making her this intergender world heavyweight champion that they were going down a dangerous path, and they came to our home here in Charlotte and filmed the special with her mom and I about it, and I support Tessa because she's my stepdaughter, but I'm not a fan of that portrayal of men and women in the ring. Not because women are incomparable or anything else, I just don't ever like anything that depicts a man being physically violent with a woman. I've got a young daughter that's 13 years old, and whether today they know it's all a work or not, it's still not a portrayal I'm real comfortable with. So I told her that I knew she had reached the pinnacle of what she could do with that organisation. He goes on to explain, of course, we didn't know this virus was going to come along, and the fact of the matter is, they had wanted her to extend her contract and do different things, and the opportunity that experience with Impact afforded her was a step in her growth in what she was doing. But she needed to move on from that, so because she extended that contract, they were paying her peanuts for one thing. But on top of that, she met all the contractual dates that she needed to make, so all I told her was, do you want to work one more shot? And I offered her up the psychology. I said take whatever their top paid guy is and figure out what that would equate to in 1 month's salary and say, hey, if you want me to come in and do this, since I met my contractual obligations, this is what it would take for me to come and do it. And it wasn't a ridiculous amount of money as what was rumored on the internet. It was just, hey, if you're going to extend this, they can extend to the equivalent of whatever you're paying your top guy. And they being Impact, didn't want to do it, and that's really the truth. So let's break down what was said there, because there was quite a lot from Magnum TA there. Basically, Impact, from what he's saying at least, wanted to release Tessa and wanted to book her on one more match to drop the belt, and Magnum TA said, right, if they're going to do that, here's what you want to do. Find out what their top guys paid, offer them the equivalent of a month's salary of that, and then Impact turned that down. And that explains why Tessa Blanchard suddenly wasn't in Impact anymore and didn't have the title anymore, which is quite an interesting window behind the scenes. And with that, thank you very much for watching this video. I've been Jack from Cultaholic.com. Leave your thoughts and opinions in that comment section down below. Stay safe out there, stay positive, have a wonderful festive period and a magnificent new year, and I'll see you very soon.